Hello and welcome, fellow bookworms and film fans. Welcome to this week's episode of The Contented Narrative, where I'll be looking at We Can Remember It Wholesale. We Can Remember It For You Wholesale, written by Philip K. Dick, which is then made into the film Total Recall in 1990 and 2012. Now, although I know you probably recognise this book, it says Minority Report, Total Recall, well, the book, the little version is the very last story in this book. So, We Can Remember It Wholesale was actually published in 1966, and I will be looking at the 1990 film version with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Now, I will also be looking at three things, as you're well aware. I'll be looking at how good is the film, how good is the book, and how good does the plot take from the book. So first of all, the film. Now, this film is a classic 90s action with Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's complete with all its one-liners. It's such a good film. It's what it is, basically. It is a 90s action Schwarzenegger film. And it does leave you at the end wondering if the whole thing was a dream or if the events really did happen. Now, I believe the events really did happen, but obviously a lot of people out there will be like, oh, but it was a dream. He'll wake up but it's not real and all of that. Now, the plot has you on the edge of your seat the entire time. And honestly, as you're watching it, you kind of sat there going, but again, is this really happening? Did this all just kick off because of this? Is this actually part of like what he paid for? And it's honestly, it has you completely hooked to the end. Despite it being exactly what you expect for it to be in regards to an action film, it has you really hooked. And you sat there and you go, oh, that's good. And honestly, every little twist and every little turn and the ending is just honestly spectacular. And I loved it. Now, honestly, just to say as well, as I said, with some of the one-liners, you've got the, I've got 5 kids to feed. And then at one point he goes, I've got 4 kids to feed. And Schwarzenegger goes, what happened to the 5th kid? And it's just absolutely, and then there's another one. Cracks me up every time I see it. Where he goes, do you think I'm the real Quaid? Ha ha ha, I am. And then just like shoots a load of guys. And then this line as well, where she's looking at his gentleman area and goes, what do you feed this thing? And he turns around and goes, blondes. Because his fake wife was blonde. So it's like all these classic sort of like one-liners are absolutely hilarious. Gets me cracking every time. So it creates a timeless classic Arnie film, and it must be on a watch list for you if you haven't already seen it. And for me, it gets an 8 out of 10. Now, the book. This is another short story. It's another brilliant idea from Philip K. Dick. I know I've done 2 of his adaptations so far, one not too long ago, but honestly, read him. He is so good. The ideas that he comes up with, considering when he released these as well, they're just such brilliant ideas and such like genius ideas. He's just sat there going, how is not all of his work turned into films? I love so the idea that memory's been implanted strong enough for you to actually think that you've been to this place is just genius. Like, because then you wouldn't have to pay to go on holiday and have the annoying luggage and everything like that. You'd literally just believe that you've spent those 2 weeks or whatever wherever you were and had fantastic time. You can control the weather, you can control everything. And I love that each time that our main guy Doug goes back to get his memories altered, it ends up revealing that whatever he's getting it altered to has actually already happened in his lifetime. And honestly, it's a great piece of writing. I kind of hoped that there would have been more to it. I kind of hoped it would have been a longer story, but I appreciate that it is a short story. So it gets a 9 out of 10 for me because it was such a quick, it's like 23 pages and it's so good. So honestly, please, if you get this version of the Minority Report, it's got several short stories from Philip K. Dick. And as I said, one of which is We Can Remember It For You Wholesale. So the plot. Now, they both start out with a main man, Douglas Quayle in the book and Douglas Quaid in the film. Don't know why they put a D to an L or vice versa. So we'll just simply call him Doug. So he wakes up after dreaming about Mars. He then gets ready with his wife and heads off to work. And again, this is very similar, exactly the same that it works. Now, in the book, it is an office job that he goes off to, but obviously you can't have Arnie in an office job. So in the film, it is construction, and he's got like one of those big jackhammer things. So Doug then sort of like is sat there and he's going, oh, You know, he's really dreaming about this Mars and he really wanted to have gone. So he's like, do you know what? I'm going to go to this recall place where they implant memories for holidays and things like that. So then he heads off to recall because of this desire that he's been to Mars. So then recall claim to implant a holiday so deep that you'll actually have gone. And if you can remember going to recall, they'll give you your full money back. So he ends up opting for the Mars secret agent package, but something goes wrong when implanting the memories. So when trying to implant the false memories, it turns out that someone has already done a mind wipe on him to implant his current life, and so that he's actually now remembering the memories of going to Mars. So the recall agency decided to not go through with it. They clear him of his memories and send him on his way. Now, in the film, they give him a full refund. In the book, cheapskates, they only give him 50% back. Rude. So then in the book, he heads home, has a row with his wife about whether or not he has or has not been to Mars. His wife's had enough of this because she's probably stuck with it for ages, and she leaves him. And when she leaves him, there is then this guy that's sort of stuck there. Now, in the film, as he gets back from recall, his colleague tries to kill him. He ends up killing his colleague and 3 other men. He then goes to his wife and goes, "Oh, you'll never believe what happened, darling." Blah 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 blah. She then tries to kill him. He then knocks her out and escapes. So then a professional guy is trying to kill him, and he manages to get away and escapes all the way to Mars. So in the book, this confrontation with this one guy, he's starting to fully remember exactly who he is, what he did to get his memory erased. And when he's remembering that, they've apparently got a chip in his brain that will relay all his thoughts to this guy. So this guy knows what Doug is thinking. But then Doug sort of escapes and runs off, manages to get the implant muffled and disappears. In the film, it doesn't quite come back to him. But at this point, he's hooked up with a woman, and he's working with the Resistance on Mars to take down Cohagen, who is a top businessman on Mars and who controls everything, including air. So he controls, imagine having to pay for air. If you don't pay for air, you can't breathe. It's ridiculous. I mean, obviously, we can choose whether or not to have the electric on, the heating on, but you can't choose not to breathe. So in the book at this point, he hands himself in, and he goes, "Look, I don't want to die, so give me a completely set of memories. Give me a whole new set of memories. If I remember again, you can kill me, but let's try this first." So he's done that, and he's asking them to help him basically so he doesn't die. Now in the film, he accidentally brings the bad guys fully to the Resistance home, base, secret base. It's a rookie move, mate. Rookie move. Who then wipe out the entire bloody Resistance. And it's because, that I've got 5 kids to feed taxi driver. I'm not being funny, but if you'd have just met a taxi driver for the first time, and he then latches onto you and holds onto you and literally follows you everywhere you go, and he's just like, "I'll be the only taxi driver for you." He then is chasing after you when you're running into the Resistance, home central base, as it were. Really, would you take him? Would you take him? I wouldn't. I'm hoping that you guys wouldn't, but obviously we'd never be in that situation, but it just baffles me. So they take him in. Obviously then Cohagen now knows where these Resistant guys are holed out, comes in, destroys everybody but Quaid and the girl. So this is when they're captured, Cohagen then explains that, Quaid was a double agent, Doug was a double agent all along, and in actuality they wiped his memories and put this in motion so that he genuinely wouldn't believe that he was who he was, and he could get past the mutants, who they are actually mutants, I'm not being rude, past the mutants who can see the future. So obviously at this point Doug is going, "But not me, I'm a nice guy." So then Cohagen tries to wipe his memory again of being this, construction worker fighting for the good guy kind of thing, and tries to wipe the girl's memory so that she will then become his loving wife and they never have to think about it. Now, obviously that doesn't go to plan. Arnie busts out in quite a typical fashion, kind of rips himself out of this machine, frees her and runs off. Because Doug doesn't want to go back to being a corporate thug. He quite likes who he is when he's with her. So also in the film as well, we're aware of a piece of machinery that's set down by aliens many eons ago, apparently, and it can either change the atmosphere of Mars or it can blow Mars to smithereens. We're not entirely sure which is which. We're hoping change the atmosphere. So anyway, at this point in the book, Doug goes to have his memory changed again, and they go into like these deep-seated things, and they go, right, okay, so this is what we've figured out. We'll set it for this. This is what your memory is going to be now. And as they do that, they realise that in actuality, this has already happened to him, and it's already been wiped from his mind. So again, they're sat there going, are you freaking kidding me? And that's where the book ends. So this is begging the question that has all of this already happened to Doug, or is it just a case of they're just not that great at their job? So the book ends kind of quite abruptly there. Now the film ends, however, with Doug saving Mars by releasing the instrument. It changes the atmosphere, so you can now all breathe. So Cohagen doesn't have a monopoly on air. However, Cohagen at this point is dead because he died before they could change the atmosphere out on Mars. And he ends the film by kissing the lovely lady, and, you know, we're left with, it's kind of left ambiguous. Did it happen? Is this really what he remembers? Or, you know, and as I said, I like to think that he does remember. Obviously, leave below in the comments which version you think. Does he remember, or is it just a memory? Do you know what I mean? Like, is it actually happening, or is it a memory? So again, such a great film from a good short story. Now they both start pretty much along the same lines. And after the trip to Recall, that's when they kind of go their separate ways. So this is when it becomes an action film in the film, obviously. And the book kind of sticks kind of to him going back and arguing, well, why can I remember, and everything like that. So I can see why they changed the narrative, because obviously the film wouldn't have been a success if they'd have stuck to the short story verbatim. But honestly, I love that they kept it kind of low key and around memories in the story, and they've kind of turned it into an action film. So the plot, it gets a 4 out of 10 for me. So as I said, it started the same, kind of veered off towards the end. Now, obviously, this is my own opinion, and I am happy to hear if you agree or disagree with anything that I've said. Just leave it below in the comments. Don't forget to click subscribe and like to be alerted for my next video. And until then, remember to always keep it contento.